So I've done quite a few tumblers over the last year or so since I've gotten my Xtool D1. And the one thing that I haven't done successfully is a 360-degree engrave around the entire thing. So that's what I tried to do today, and I'm going to walk you through that process that I took. So the first thing that I do is measure the circumference of the tumbler. And I do this, this is very similar to the one I'm using for this project. So I take a flexible tape measure like for fabric. And in this case, I'm going to try to keep it in line with the line and the bottom line of the tumbler so I get as accurate reading as I can. You can see that it's about 245, 244 millimeters, give or take, right there. So that is the measurement that I will use in Lightburn to try to make this thing successful. On to the next step. So the next thing I do is create the design in Adobe Illustrator. So this is obviously the finished design, but where I start is with this box. So I've measured the tumbler again is 245 millimeters circumference. The height is 130 millimeters. So that's what that box is. So that I want to keep my design within that, so I make sure I get it on the tumbler where I want it to, and it doesn't it's not too big, too small, etc. So I lock that layer so that I don't mess with that. And then I create my design. Whatever your design is doesn't matter. What I had to do here as a precaution is the space right here and the space right here I had to leave open because that tumbler already has a manufacturer's engraving on it. So I didn't want it to look weird and me over engrave it, and then it's kind of odd. So um, I measured that out, left a gap there so that I hopefully hit that cleanly. Um, and then I save this out as an Adobe Illustrator file and move on to the next step, which is Lightburn. So the next step is Lightburn. I have obviously imported my design into Lightburn, um, and I have it already set up with my Tumbler engraving settings, which I'll show you. I do 70 millimeters per second at 100% max power, and I find that this does really well with powder coating or painted tumblers, so that's what we use. The next thing we need to do is plug in that circumference number. So I go up here to the Laser Tools Rotary Setup, and I plug in 245. It's already in there, obviously, but it then changes the diameter automatically. So that's all I changed there. I want to make sure that Enable Rotary is checked. I have had some engravings where I did not check that, and then next thing you know, I have a line on my tumbler because it did not turn. So that's a key. Always double check that. Then I need to make sure that my design is oriented correctly. So because I know how it's going to be on the rotary, I need to rotate this 270 degrees. So that's perfect there. And then because I'm trying to work around that um, manufacturer logo that's already engraved on the tumbler, um, obviously this area and this area is where that's going to go. So to make sure I get it right in the right spot, I need to start my engraving at the lower right hand corner, which is right here. And you'll see on the next video where I start it, or where I start the engraving is right there on top of that little drop. So um, that's all for Lightburn, obviously. Then you start it, and the next step you'll see. So now you see I have my laser spot directly underneath that little teardrop logo of the manufacturer's logo, and it is perfectly, try as good as I can, perfectly centered on that logo. So that's where the engraving will start. I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing. I'm going to speed it up pretty quick, but I do want to point out that this whole thing took about an hour and 20, 25 minutes, something like that in the engraver. And I probably wouldn't want to do this on the old school roller rotary, just because if it gets out of alignment just a hair, it's ruined. So the new Chuck rotary is really the best way to do this, in my opinion, and you get pretty clean results. All right, so let's take a look at the finished product. Here it is. I'm extremely happy with it. I think it turned out great. Not only the design of everything, but you can still get the small details here, all the pickleballs obviously all the way around. But for this to be successful, it's the seam on the 360 design that has to be either very minor or unnoticeable. Um, Otherwise, it just isn't going to be a 360, right? So I decided to put the seam here in the back where this initial logo of the bottle manufacturer is, and I worked my design around it. Um, and I started my print or my engrave right here at the top of the little drop, I guess is what that is. Um, so the seam of the 360 design is right here. And if you're really looking close, you can tell that it's just a hair farther apart between these two balls than say these two balls. But overall, no one's going to notice that. Where it'll come into play is if you have like straight lines that don't meet up or something like that. But a design like this, you can get away with being off just a little. Um, Overall, I am incredibly happy with how this thing turned out, and gives me confidence to do more of these. So, oh, and don't forget, if you did enjoy this video, please like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.